first speaker of today, we have Smit of MVRDV. Stephen Smit studied at Utrecht University at the Netherlands and the University of Tasmania in Australia, where he received a bachelor's degree in architecture and environmental design in 1994. Based in Shanghai, he oversees MVRDV's Asian projects and clients, working with MVRDV's local team in the city. Active in China and Hong Kong since 2002 at director level, his experience covers the practice of architecture in China from concept to completion. Smit has gained unique insights in the diverse and innovative approaches possible and necessary in Asia. And in his own words, I have always been attracted to ambition, optimism, and adventure in the built environment. We'd like to welcome Stephen Smit.
Hi.
Hi, Stephen.
Hi, Stephen.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Sound good?
Yes.
Yep.
Hold on, let me just fix something. Oh yeah, okay. Can you see my desktop?
Yes?
Yes.
Oh, your
Okay.
desktop?
Okay,
not your
well,
screen.
let's start. First of all,
sorry.
We can't see your presentation yet.
Hello?
We can't
See your screen.
You can see my screen?
not yet.
Oh, sorry, hold on a second.
No worries. There you go.
There you go. Perfect.
Perfect.
Okay,
All right.
sorry about that. Well, as you kindly introduced, I'm the director for MVRD in Asia, based in Shanghai. I'm leading our projects in the region, working very closely with our Rotterdam studio. First of all, I would like to, that's myself, as you can find me on the website. I would like to start though congratulating the organizers of this forum. I was particularly impressed with the COVID design produced by WTA as I did some research on what's going on in Manila, and truly that's acted a very good initiative, and I was impressed how fast the design was adapted for use. So congratulations, people behind that in Manila. We're all impressed. So actually, the theme for today is about what we call hybrid architecture, and in particular, why hybrid architecture is related to the circular economy. MVRDV has always pioneered radical urban scenarios, and in particular, as they need to fit the challenging 21st century context. We believe humanity has a pivot point in history, and we expect in the coming decades, with urbanization speeding up, technical, virtual, ecological agency will shift human behavior. And we believe that this requires new hybrid architecture, relationships between the man-made, technological, and the natural. And we will show a dozen of projects tonight, and I'm going to race through them because there's quite a lot of content. Just by the way, like I introduced your excellent COVID initiative back in the Netherlands. Our teams are basically working in a lockdown, which actually has been quite interesting, given that we in a way got closer together because of Zoom. One of the reasons I could pull this Zoom tonight together, in amongst other things, is that we got very skilled in essentially working online. And I think this online collaboration has been, a significant benefit, if you could mention a benefit under this lockdown. But here you see typically one of our, company-wide meetings where people from Rotterdam, Shanghai, Berlin, and Paris, basically discussing the state of the company, the state of the projects, how we're dealing with COVID, You know, how we are all working from home from our laptops that were purchased, and everybody was set up to work from home. In China, things are, of course, easier in that Shanghai is pretty well normal. But back in Europe, we keep this, you know, as a bit of advice to keep calm. In MVRDV, we have a works council, and this all allows us to you know, discuss the problems you might have in this extraordinary period. Anyway, going to basically the beginning of the company, basically the founding partners. For those people that do not know MVRDV, MVRDV, the letters stand for the initials for the 3 founding partners, and in front of you see Winnie Maas. I'm just showing you what the founding partners who could not take part in this forum because of COVID, but also because of the heavy online work schedule with other events. I'm just quickly showing you what those 3 founding partners who really drive the culture of the company, what they're up to this month, because whatever they are up to this month, in a way drives very much the culture and the direction of the company. And in front of you see Winnie Maas in March. He was participating in a event in the Netherlands where basically sustainability is very much high on the agenda. It plays a big role in driving the sustainability, the largest scale sustainability solution in the Netherlands. How to create sustainable, circular, green, and high quality housing for the future of the Netherlands. And
So I think we have a technical difficulty
The
with.
connection issues.
Oh, there you go. He's back.
am I back?
Yes.
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 Oh, where did I go wrong?
We had a mini heart attack.
Okay, well, let's just continue with,
Yes.
with my introduction of Winnie Maas, which was, hold on, share the screen again. Okay, where were we?
With Winnie Maas.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, hold on a second. Okay, hold on, let me enlarge it. Okay, well, I'll just continue. So Winnie Maas is actively involved in driving the discussion in the Netherlands on how to green the cities. And this is a typical image of a city in the Netherlands called Eindhoven, where Winnie Maas is overlaying as a radical green dip. You know, essentially, you know, producing strategy scenarios to radically increase the amount of green and trees in the city. And that is actually a scenario playing out very much all across the Netherlands. So that was Winnie Maas. The second partner, okay, I just introduced Winnie Maas, our current founding partner, very influential in urbanism in the Netherlands and globally even. The second partner I want to introduce was Jacob van Rijs. His studio just won the best bit of architecture in Germany for 2020 with a building that looks like this. It's very much building in the trend of the circular economy, ultimate flexibility, understated, but with the use of an artist that reflects some of the cultural vibe in that creative hub in Munich. Our third partner, founding partner, Natalie van Rijs. She's also been active this month in various festivals online. She's one of the most influential architects in the Netherlands and also recently won an award with this building in Poland. This is an existing building that has been basically given a new life. As you can see, one end of the building is classical, it's an old heritage building. The other end of the building has been basically brought into the 21st century as a creative hub, a lot of use of local artists to to really focus on the interior of the building, and at the same time bring green onto the roof and so on. This is actually typically a project that fits the talk, which is about hybrid architecture and circular economy. So recycling the building and hybrid in this case, the perfect combination of the old and the new. The next project I like to talk about quickly is simply because it's in the news a lot this year. It's the newest museum in the Netherlands by MVRDV. It's called TEPO. It's a hybrid museum in this way, in that it's essentially a new type of museum where it's combining very much the park as part of the building. At the same time, it's bringing art that is usually in the basement. It's basically the archives of the museum surrounding it are now brought above ground into this iconic building that reflects also the city in a very interesting way. While it's covered in mirrors. On top of the building, we created a new park because the footprint of the building stands in the existing park. Upstairs, after you've toured the museum, you can go and enjoy that new forest, city forest, while at the same time enjoy food in a new restaurant. So this is a building that will open this year and has a lot of impact already in simply by opening up the entire ecosystem of museum conservation to a new type of museum facility, very educational, how people store art, etc. Talking about, again, that issue of the circular economy and in regards to architecture, that's very much about transformation of buildings. Our existing office in Rotterdam is actually in a 1950s industrial building. It's called MVRDV House. It has quite a reputation in the Netherlands as that architect office that managed to create a vibrant hub around itself. Very open building, very much bringing let's say creativity into the old industrial design of this high ceiling building, and at the same time, this is where all these projects get created. MVRDV, in total on the website, you can find 355 projects. Obviously, I can't show them all, but you can already see that on this combination, just random off the website, and a lot of our projects include nature. So this, this symbiosis between nature and architecture is very much a red line that carries right through our portfolio nowadays. Another thing I should mention is that MVRDV is also deep into research and has a think tank that collaborates with the Technical University of Delft in the Netherlands. We call this the Y Factory. This is a place where Maas runs a lot of research projects for master students, and where in fact the future city is investigated. This is basically a laboratory for the city. It has had a lot of impact, globally, even because of the publications that come out of this Y Factory. For instance, in China, there is a big effect of, because we have many Chinese students doing master programs in the Netherlands. And by the way, our China experience, of course, also has impact on our research, and this vertical village idea, the vertical city, is partly a topic that is driven by our exposure to Asian projects. So can the future city optimize hybrid 3D public space? Can the future city, the future hybrid city, truly open towers to people and nature? So these are the questions, the why questions, the how questions that come from our think tank. And I always like to start, introducing our sort of exposure to the Asian markets with this project that we designed for Vanke, which is one of the biggest property developers in China. And they wanted a new office building. We call it the 3D city. And it's very much an example of hybrid urbanism, or hybrid architecture, coming from the three-dimensional city thinking. And you can see where we're trying to create opportunities to bring a lot of dynamics, a lot of greenery, a symbiosis of the city and nature to what is a very large-scale project in Shenzhen. Now, this project is typical how MVRDV works, optimizing opportunities for vertical landscape, for public domain, and in a way trying to create a playful composition, a playful part of the city, especially when we're surrounded by vertical extrusions that become, wind tunnel. We really create that, we're trying to create in this project is this sort of more human scale, even though we're talking about hundreds of thousands of square meters. Another thing that is, of course, our objective in a project like this is to bring that, to bring nature in its most, vibrant manner to the architecture and create this vertical landscape, basically being as many parks as possible within the footprint of the project and optimizing of the land. So in this particular project, we create a whole range of vertical gardens: a business park garden, a lounge park garden, art park garden, vertical park. The urban jungle that even could you can bring to this type of stacking of the volumes. What is also quite interesting, I think, is that given the sort of global nature of our firm and the fact that we are obviously, being invited to many exciting projects and briefs, especially in Asia, this actually starts having an effect on our projects in the Netherlands. So in this project in Shenzhen, where we're working with big spaces or big windows into the world, actually is also present in our work in the Netherlands. This is maybe our most famous project currently in Rotterdam, where our hometown, where we won this award in 2015 for the market hall. Now, this is of a scale that is sort of influenced by our Asian work, and it's actually quite interesting how you have this cross-fertilization between if a global practice actually also brings some of the influences and ideas back to their home country. This project you can see sitting there in the city of Rotterdam, already slightly overpowering the surrounding buildings, because there's this sort of more larger scale brought to the city. But we do that for a reason, to create this really radical space that expresses what happens in that space. In this case, it's an indoor market hall, and it's again that sort of hybrid architecture to combine the program of the marketplace and at the same time build apartments right over this market hall, and at the same time express the culture of the country. In this case, the printing, the digital printing on that facade, which is inspired by 17th century paintings by the Dutch masters who painted still lifes that you see in museums. Another very important project for MVRDV. 20 years ago, we designed the World Expo in Hanover in Germany. 20 years later, that project became a ruin, but much loved by local youth culture. And that's again here we go again. Wait a minute. Let me go to that building again. Here we are. Sorry. So that Expo building that's 20 years old, in the spirit of recycling, the circular economy, transforming existing buildings, with the lowest carbon footprint. That building recently got a building permission to start construction, which is basically taking the old Expo building, turning it into Expo 2.0, the innovation community, where you combine the old Expo building, become a co-working hub, surrounded by students who also have their startup offices nearby, and a very much a 21st century living, working project that has a recycled building that was actually in its day, 20 years ago, probably the most radical nature city expression. Basically, was one of the first projects that became a reference to include vertical landscape to the floor plates. Originally multiplying nature with the help of technology. Now these floor plates are being adjusted to a new function, and it gives us the Expo 2.0 project, which is all about circular construction, and in a way also a very good symbol of the EU, the European Union post-COVID renovation wave. And you can see how that building from 20 years ago, which is very much an iconic MVRDV project that was very influential also for ourselves. You can see that in recent projects there is still a lot of that spirit of not being afraid to express nature. This is in Eindhoven, by the way, where Winnie Maas is the advisor to the city government, and where the newer master plans, post-COVID master plans, have led to far more possibilities to bring green living to the city in many different forms. So, once again, it's almost like that Expo building was 20 years ahead of its time. But time has now post-COVID, but only not post-COVID, only also post-Paris 15 and post the Dutch climate accords. A lot of the innovative ideas from the last decades now actually can be realized readily, and there's just a huge demand to bring green to the city in combination with circular economy initiatives. This is a project that is in Amsterdam. I'll show you a little bit later. By the way, this is our LinkedIn page, which also gives an update of our current projects. Another project again that is about hybrid architecture in circular economy. This is a project that is held, or it is a program that needs an architect every 10 years. It's the Floriade exhibition in the Netherlands that's held every 10 years. This time, MVRDV was selected to create basically a city that can hold this Floriade exhibition about flowers, that after the exhibition can continue as a new district for a new suburb outside Amsterdam. So the idea of this island, that is it's basically a flower expo, similar to the World Expo, that then can be turned, recycled into a city, based on flowers and trees. I just quickly go back to this thing I mentioned earlier, that that MVRDV as a Dutch company from the Netherlands, and Netherlands being part of the European Union, a lot of thinking to do with architecture and design is very much influenced by Paris 2015. In the years immediately after Paris, very radically sustainable architecture started to be built. And this started leading also to deeper questions about the future of construction. How does construction fit in the circular economy? Why is the built environment one of the 5 key sectors to make the economy more circular? And with circular, we mean, of course, lower carbon footprint. The key point there was in 2019 the Netherlands National Climate Policy. That was released. And that target that was set by the government of a 55% carbon neutral economy by 2030 and 100% carbon neutral economy by 2050 has had a major impact on the new standards for circular construction. So the construction standards of Europe are basically turned into circular construction standards. And that has a massive effect. By the way, this shows the report from the government, right, where they are aiming for that. Well, they're not aiming; they're actually, setting the Netherlands to achieve the 2050 deadline. Has a big impact on all architects in the Netherlands, including MVRDV. We study these circularity reports, for instance, right? 2019, the world is 9% circular. It's in fact going in reverse, because in 2020 it was only 8% circular. These type of issues are also very much studied at the Y Factory, and it's really looking at what's the role of the built environment in the total resources entering the global economy. So you need to look at this globally, embodied carbon. How can architects contribute to bring that embodied carbon down? And it's, of course, not just a European problem. This is a slide from Australia, where there's also a building circularity movement happening. A renaissance is being discussed. So, and by the way, in Australia, we do some work as well. So it's very interesting how architecture firms globally are sort of maneuvering between these new policies that are happening everywhere. One thing I wanted to mention, which I think is very important, is a new movement in the Netherlands, also co-founded by MVRDV, which is this open building movement. Openbuilding.co, it's a website I recommend people visit simply because it's basically going totally towards flexible architecture, modular architecture. Every component, the carbon footprint, embodied carbon is known, and you start getting projects that are very much prefabricated and lightweight, can be placed over the top of all the buildings. By the way, this is not an MVRD project, but it is in Rotterdam. But it is part of the open building movement. In fact, a lot of architects tend to start following a similar manifesto. I think it's going to be very influential. They're trying to bring it to China. That also fits, it's in tandem with the European Green Deal, becoming this first climate neutral continent. It's going to have a huge impact on architecture in our view. And then, of course, the EU, the renovation wave, also a post-COVID program, is something that MVRDV is it actually suits MVRDV a lot, because a lot of our projects are actually transformation projects. This slide shows our CarbonScape software. So MVRDV has a group called Next. They develop new software that help us design low carbon footprint buildings. And this is very important because as projects are ramping up, organization is ramping up, it's important you have fast tools to help you deliver these low carbon footprint buildings. So, for instance, the certifications that MVRDV is part of, one of those new ones is CO2 gestation ladder. Prestatieladder is a Dutch word. It means it's a certification that basically collectively that leads to lower CO2. Taking to another project that we are doing in Amsterdam that is a little bit more advanced than this you see on the slide on construction. It's this valley project. Again, what I would call hybrid architecture, because it's a project where we basically bring nature into a hybrid building between a corporate office building with the flat facades and a very open residential group of apartments that are basically grouped around the valley. Now, if you know the Netherlands is flat, to bring a valley into the city like this is, of course, very unique. And this valley has the same planting, so the landscape designer that worked on the High Line in New York, Piet Oudolf, and he's designed, different climates. He's designed the plants to suit the different climates as the building rises up to 100 meters. We use a lot of innovative software, very parametric. It might look chaotic, but it's actually parametrically optimized for sunlight, privacy. We've been using these projects also to develop, better software to be more creative, but at the same time, bring all the parameters in that lead to those low carbon footprints. So this is probably the most anticipated construction project in the Netherlands. It even has a museum in it. It has retail as you go up the valley. And of course, a lot of solar and sustainability, water recycling, top of the range, new generation hybrid architecture that we do in the Netherlands. Also, I have to say, influenced by some of the projects we do in Asia, because we do play with similar ideas on a large scale in China as well. So living and working in nature in the city, that's a real MVRDV slogan. Of course, I'm going to show you some China projects because that's where I'm based, and MVRDV is very excited to work in Asia in general. Of course, the problem we have here is a carbon footprint that is, obscene, or how do you say it? It's all part of the drive in China to achieve these higher living standards, and a lot of the cities need serious work, and it's understandable that the carbon footprint that comes with that is large. So in our projects, we're trying, not just China, but Asia-wide, we're trying to come up with new ideas that bring that in particular look also at recycling of buildings, because the lowest carbon footprint building is the building that of course A is not built but B is reused. This is a project in Taiwan, Tainan Spring. We basically turned a department store that was at the end of its life into an urban lagoon. It's one of a kind. It's basically bringing nature into the city. This is a part of Tainan where there used to be a waterway that was built over. We bring the water back, bring the people back, and at the same time express that there was a building there and bringing and giving it that that cultural connection still with the past. In Seoul we have actually recycled the freeway, and we call this a sky garden. It's basically a planted village on a former city highway. This has been, it looks very obvious thing to do, yet it doesn't happen often enough in cities where potentially, freeways can become obsolete or can be tunneled or in other ways can be bypassed. So it's a very nice way, we think, to bring essentially a botanical garden on top of concrete. This is like a kilometer park. It has 645 trees, over 200 species, 24,000 plants, and it will mature in the next decade to basically a forest that used to be concrete. Another transformation project we did in China recently, Nantou. It's a village in the middle of the mega city of Shenzhen, and we turned an old factory into what we call a creative hub. We call it the idea factory. We bring a landscape onto the roof. In this case, a bamboo forest, a whiskey bar on top. Comes a public roof where it wasn't public before. It's bringing a lot of green into the mega city. And one of the key moves we made here was a budget issue to do one thing really well, which was to tunnel through the building and to give public access directly to that roof, as you can see here. The tunnel through bypassing all the creative offices for the younger entrepreneurs, of which there are many in Shenzhen. Another project, a transformation project that we've done in China, that's actually on the go right now, is again in the city of Shenzhen. Now, Shenzhen has a lot of buildings that are reaching 15-year age, and traditionally in Shenzhen, buildings of 15 years simply get demolished. They were built essentially to a 15-year lifespan, which is of course a bit insane. So this is actually the very first building where the existing building is actually recycled. And as you can see here, so if you go back, as you can see here, the concept diagram for this. It's also interesting that this is the first public-private partnership in Shenzhen. So there's a new way of developing these existing buildings where the public and the private sector come together to start building on that next wave of urban transformation. You can see on the top left, the gray concrete building, the entrance life, how we have these policies to bring color in, basically upgrade the circulation, upgrade the facade, and turn it into a completely new personality, a new person in the urban fabric. Sorry, it's going a bit too fast there. So this women's center, which has a large component of program for children, theaters, learning environments, kindergarten, and apartments and hotel on top, is going to basically revitalize what is a 20-year-old part of Shenzhen. And if you know Shenzhen, a brand new city, if you like, the first part of that new city has become a little bit worn out. And so to bring these type of buildings into Shenzhen and other cities of China is something we are really looking forward to do more. While we're in Shenzhen, another typical MVRDV approach to create an urban living room by creating terrace landscapes surrounded by towers done by others, so that the people in the apartments and offices next door look down on a terrace landscape. We're trying to basically be inspired by the famous terraces, the rice terraces in China. But the key thing here is to achieve the seamless integration of landscape, leisure, commerce, and culture. So this project will start construction soon. Again, it's got very high sustainability content, and again, it's that hybrid between landscape and city, and also a very, very dynamic program. Theaters, libraries, cultural centers, and as it overgrows with this landscape, it will be, basically an urban jungle. One of the larger projects as a new idea that we worked on was for Tencent. Tencent is basically the Facebook of China. They own the WeChat ecosystem, and Tencent is building a new city for their very fast-growing workforce. And we worked for 2 years on a project where we tried to really optimize that symbiosis of technology and nature. And as you can see here, we're bringing a massive amount of solar cells into a campus that we lost the competition. We were too radical, but these ideas we used in Shenzhen and made itself to a new project in Chengdu, which we call Sky Valley, which is again this utopian fusion of technology and nature, where a lot of the ideas we got from the Shenzhen competition that were not successful, we tried adjusted to the Chengdu competition brief. I don't know if people know Chengdu, but Chengdu is in Sichuan. It is not flat. It has a sort of a slightly hilly landscape. And what we try to do, you can see here the difference between the surrounding more generic Chinese urbanization thinking, where we sort of offset that with working with the topology of the landscape. And we're bringing basically, essentially what we're doing, we're building a city sitting inside an urban farm. Sichuan is very fertile land, and it would be a pity to build over it. So this future science city is essentially combined with a farm, and there's a lot of this type of thinking and design going on in China, not just by us. A lot of Chinese firms, avant-garde firms, but also international firms, more and more. And also the Chinese government is open to these type of hybrid cities that obviously need to become more and more part of the thinking that influences the older city planning standards. In Beijing, on the Grand Canal, we're more or less creating this habitat for biodiversity by basically naturalizing what is essentially at this point a relatively industrial straight waterway. We're naturalizing it, allow more room for the water, wetlands, and islands, etc. in the city. A typical competition in China where the government again is extremely ambitious to counter the monotonous concrete jungle that has been created, and they know it needs to be improved in order for the well-being of the city, of the citizens in the mega city. So as you can see, everybody is very active in landscape, urban planning, urbanism or hybrid urbanism, as we call it. Besides building, Minimas, by the way, besides urbanist architect, is also actually a licensed landscape architect. And we cannot think of architecture separate from landscape. It is part of the same. You need all these disciplines to get these holistic solutions. YRD stands for the Yangtze River Delta, the provinces outside Shanghai. And we have various projects going on. One of them is what we call this Water Village Living Room Master Plan. Because around Shanghai, you have these old water villages that have an interesting relationship with the water. It's very flat delta, and some of the older villages need to bring new life in. The young people have moved to the center of the city, and the villages have become empty. So we bring in a new economy, new landscape. A lot of the ideas come from our Dutch projects because we're also in a delta in the Netherlands. But again, trying to create the symbiosis, between human flora and fauna to the water villages surrounding Shanghai, and to create this integrated network, cross-boundary collaboration, because these villages are quite a wide area. They are sort of sitting within different administrations, and these type of larger policies could achieve, this cross-boundary collaboration and essentially creating a new economy for our, places where most of the industry has become, obsolete, and new experimental programs, new experimental economy. In fact, it's based on circular economy thinking, based on ecological conditions, is a typical exercise we do for the Chinese government around Shanghai. Well, in Shanghai, we also do, zero carbon, zero emission type projects. This is a headquarters for a agri-business company, where we again play with this terrace idea, and also to achieve that zero carbon footprint, making heavy use of solar panels and at the same time trying to create, a comfortable set of environments under that roof in summer. So Shanghai is quite a hot city in summer. There's a lot of solar load. So as you can see, under that roof, we terrace the building, give all the office users access to greenery, and at the same time, in a clever way, we also include solar on the curtain walls. As you can see here, various a lot of opportunity to take the green right through this project. The solar canopy that is optimized for the solar exposure. I think we're getting there, but this one is interesting. Again, in Shenzhen, again for the company Tencent, and it is basically a residential project that is sitting in the top right corner. So we want to do a very small part of what is essentially an entire city for one single company. And these are the apartments for the young employees that come to work in the city and need instant accommodation. What we've designed for them is a community that is completely modularized. So we're working on a grid and we're working on apartments that are optimized and can be stacked in different ways, and at the same time by stacking allowing a lot of greenery to be included in the composition. Of course, we're trying to work with Chinese manufacturers that are now coming up because of government support to move very much into prefabrication, because these prefabrication units can have that low carbon footprint that then allows the lower carbon footprint for the entire community. It's got voids in it, as we always do in our vertical projects, to bring open space that can be shared between these studio apartments, in fact. And then there is the kindergarten that, together with the units, creates this instant community. And we're quite excited about it because we're really into prefabrication, that it allows sort of a more measured, sustainability to be included in a single unit that can be prefabricated in factory conditions. This is the kindergarten as it's sitting in between the towers with the units. Optimized apartments, optimized for view, optimized for ventilation, and just optimized for clever use of space. Just getting towards the end, I think. How are we going for time? Hello? Anyway, this is Willy Maas. Willy Maas is of course, visionary, and he is very much into global design, where every climate, every culture has an ideal city design. Right? This can lead to many different interpretations that make the world a better place. This is a quote from Willy that comes from these two magazines. It's actually Doris magazine that every year now is running a special guest edition program. In 2019, Willy was the guest editor. And in those 10 magazines, from January to December 2019, you will find essentially the manifesto of MVRDV. In that, by inviting other designers, urbanists, artists, philosophers, etc., to talk about all those issues that need to be dealt with in the 21st century, global warming, a lower carbon footprint in the construction sector, circular types of construction that lead to the lower carbon footprint. All those issues are discussed here, and it's not a single architect that has the answers, it's a collective effort. Really has a nice way of also involving everybody in that has this term, new urbanism. In the beginning of 2019 and towards the end of 2019, I bring everybody into this discussion, then say it's time for action, it's up to you, it's up to us to build those better cities.
mic is
Another thing I would like to plug is a book that was published actually, or was on the market as of last week, I think, for Rebound RDA. This is our PR partner in Rotterdam, he has a lot of experience in sort of contemporary architecture practice and the issues they face in actually being also successful as a business. I think it's very useful for people visiting this forum to have a look at this book, because it discusses not just what I've discussed, the architecture we do. It's also very important to understand how to promote your ways of working, how to link work so that you can contribute to this as a city. Especially for smaller companies, I think there's a lot of good advice based on 20 years experience with MVRD and also ORA. So for people who want to know more about MVRD, please follow in China or in Asia WeChat and our WeChat channel and our WeChat posts. But on Instagram, you can, sorry, I forgot to put the slides in here. But on Instagram, you can also find us on LinkedIn. We have, as I said, very successful PR department, and that's why they write the books.
Do we have
But thank you for are we at the end of the talk? I think so. That was it.
Oh,
All right. Thanks for your wonderful lecture. Thanks for sharing MVRDV's work, Stephen. And we have a couple of questions if you have time. One question in mind is, we actually kind of realized how big your projects are, and one project came into our mind, that the Sky Garden in Seoul, especially the Sky Garden in Seoul. What kind of challenges do you encounter while working with the government and the community with this kind of huge projects?
Yeah, well, with this project, we have a very good relationship with the mayor of Seoul. We also have Korean employees. So we had a very good working relationship with the government. We were very open to what was essentially a simple idea, to basically to put pots of plants on a ready-made platform. It is interesting how that project was received, because at the same time, a lot of people compare this project with the Highline in New York. The Highline had a much higher budget than this project is sold. The Highline in New York is a custom bespoke design, beautiful stone and patterns, etc. But we basically used the raw highway as a platform, and then simply put most of the design into the design of the landscape as far as species, and to select all those Korean species that make it the native botanical garden. But if a project like that is just new, it takes time to grow. So initially, some people in Seoul felt that it was a little bit bare, a little bit hard, too much concrete. But as time goes on, and they've also learned, or we have basically brought our landscape to Seoul to educate them how to actually let these plants go wild, right? So that's much a jumbo effect rather than cutting every tree into shape. And as that project is now maturing, it's very much loved by people. It's I don't think it was actually a difficult thing to achieve at all.
Yeah, I would like to congratulate you and your team for creating that wonderful project, since it's really well received even by the Filipinos.
Yeah, I hope we can find some highways in Manila and do something like that.
Yeah. Go ahead. Do you have another question, please?
so I noticed that your MVRDV's designs are a lot data-driven, or the designs come from data collected with the context, and it's always different. With this, what are your top considerations regarding data, and what do you guys look for when in your design approach?
It's interesting you mentioned data. It's true that maybe 25, 30 years ago, we actually published various books on the use of that data driving design. And at that point, we were actually front runners, I think. And of course, nowadays, using thing. Sorry, I think someone is knocking on the door. 1 second.
No worries.
We have 2 questions.
Sorry, someone knocking on the door. I think I think data has become basically used more and more by everybody. Also to do with big software, building information modeling. I think we were already in data before building became some more used. We're not trying to actually a team in Rotterdam that we call the next team to actually create certain AI, to create certain software like carbon measuring tool. We're trying to create software that helps us to quicker bring those data to the design approach. In that a lot of architecture software is still relatively primitive. And it's really up to architects to actually find that new software. I mean, that's an architecture in itself, to design the software that we use to optimize your architecture. And that's typically what we like to invest in. I mean, we invest actually a lot in this type of, let's call it, data-driven software that you can connect directly into BIM. We also have some software called Greenmaker, which is a database of an enormous amount of plants, trees, and with the data that comes with it, so you can very quickly populate our master plans and buildings with nature.
So we have a question from our audience. He asks, he says, thank you for sharing with us, and congratulations also to MVRDV for being awarded as the 2020 Architect of the Year by Dezeen. His question is about the Depot Boymans. It's interesting how it is cladded with mirror all throughout. However, isn't it dangerous for the flying birds? How does the building design address this issue?
Yeah. Now this question comes up a lot, and so this has been taken into account from the very beginning. So the people who have designed that facade and the glass as a type of reflection, I've been told, have optimized the reflectivity and looked at flight paths. So all I'm saying is it was always part of the concern. And I'm being told that somehow the reflectivity is adjusted to that. Now, I don't know, because I haven't counted the birds flying on the ground. I can tell you that I actually have a little holiday home in Australia where I have some glass that for solar reasons have a little bit of reflectivity on it. And I noticed actually birds learn how to fly around. Seriously, I mean, the birds will adapt to the building. And as I said, it was mentioned, but I haven't actually, heard anything negative from the press or anything like that. And all of a sudden, there are dozens of dead birds around the building. I simply believe that. I believe my colleagues, when they say they have optimized that reflectivity to minimize that issue, because yes, it is a problem in certain cities and certain buildings.
Actually, Stephen, with the same building, we were wondering what would be the effect of air pollution, dust, even the sun being on the building's skin. And when it comes to the sun, the reflection of the sunlight going to the park around it. So what would be the effect to the park, the heat gain it
Yeah.
may have?
Well, I mean, okay, this building well, for starters, as you mentioned, this building is magical. I mean, I was in Rotterdam, before COVID, February last year, and the skin was already almost finished at the time. And it's amazing how that skin exaggerates the skyline, because Rotterdam's skyline is actually quite simple because Dutch cities don't have skylines. But somehow this building exaggerates it and brings the city very close into one single point and creates an instant central point to a museum park that was always missing one central element. The Dutch sun actually is very weak, right? We're not, it's not like Australia or the Philippines where you have much more sun. I mean, the Dutch actually celebrate every bit of light that they can get because they're very northern oriented. It's actually, I've actually not heard it mentioned before that the sun, that there will be too much sun reflected around this building. But there has been a lot of analysis done in computer and also facade consultants, to somehow, I mean, it is probably the most sophisticated bit of glass in the Netherlands. It's not an ordinary curtain wall that you might find on an office building. Also because there are not many windows in this building, because it's actually an archive for very, very expensive art. It'll be interesting to see if indeed this building in the next couple of years, when it's running through a few summers, what the effect will be. But I've been told, because I'm in China, I haven't directly worked on this building, that actually that issue has not come up actually yet. But anyway, thanks for the question.
We have another question. So, hello Stephen. It was an amazing presentation. I am Imelda Akmal, Chief Editor of Arcanesia Book Magazine. Since you mentioned about circular economy, can you elaborate what do you mean by circular economy according to your perspective? And how far is its impact to your hybrid architecture practice?
Yeah, okay, so, the Netherlands has basically set that target of a circular economy, which means an economy that basically produces no waste. It's an economy that, that all the energy that's gone into products or services, we're talking about construction, we're talking about circular, we're talking about transportation, we're talking especially about agriculture. And so on, that basically there's a minimum amount of wasted carbon, involved in the entire process. Basically, the construction industry is one of the biggest sectors that can actually tackle this problem relatively simple by producing materials with a lower carbon, at a lower amount of embodied carbon. So I mean, basically, it's a whole new culture that is happening in the Netherlands. So everything needs to be thought through from a circular point of view. Basically, no waste. And obviously, given that the construction industry uses so many materials, concrete, steel, there's so much embodied carbon that if you actually have to build it, if you have to use it, you ensure that it will always be used. That's where that open building movement in the Netherlands comes from. So that, for instance, you build an office building, it's built out of components that can be assembled and put together in a new building. So those construction materials will simply be used, generation after generation after generation. So that is a real new way of thinking, and has a huge impact on how you design buildings. By the way, another interesting point there is this materials passport. So the European Union is very close to collectively introducing this materials passport. It means every single component in a building needs to be basically certified. You need to know exactly how much energy was used to produce that, and what's going to happen with the product or that component at the end of its life. So it changes all the rules, in fact. You cannot just In fact, you cannot essentially build in massive concrete anymore. This is one of the reasons why the Netherlands now so much timber architecture is considered as a very quick way to become more secular, because timber is one of those products that fit that new standard. So, you asked the question, how we see that it's fitting the hybrid architecture. I would say that hybrid architecture relates more to moving away from monoculture in regards to architecture or urbanism. So we like to combine, achieve the symbiosis between city and nature, but also between different functions and program. In that we try to, in all cases, try to avoid monocultural outcomes. Just an office building or just a science city, which is just office spaces. We try to bring people and mix it all up. I think that's more or less related to a hybrid thinking, but I think that's all connected in a way. For some reason, I think our formula is more that we really like, or in fact we anticipated this circular architecture, as I showed in the Expo building from 2000. In a way, our architecture has always been anticipating these new, sort of super sustainability ways of thinking.